much for tuning in. I'm now joined by President and CEO of Oxfam America, Abby Maxman. Abby, thank you so much for joining us today.
Great to be here, Rebecca. Thank you.
No problem. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about the role of local organizations, local leadership. Obviously, Oxfam, particularly Oxfam in America, is almost a household name. You're kind of at the forefront of any humanitarian crises wherever they may be happening. But how crucial is it to your work that you have local organizations also on the ground taking part in that first response?
It's a great question, Rebecca, and it's absolutely crucial. It's actually essential for long-term sustainability and impact. Local leadership, local actors are the first to respond in disasters. They are the first to act. Their voices and understanding of local culture and community is the most impactful and legitimate. And our relationship to work with local partners is fundamental to effective humanitarian response.
Great. And as local organizations their presence begins to be a bit more prominent, how does that affect an international organization like yourself?
Well, it's interesting because local organizations have been active and prevalent and prominent always. It's the relationship and the interconnected relationship between international actors and local organizations whereby we work with them as partners, as true partners, to amplify their voice. They're already advocates and operational actors on the ground, as are we in many places. So the collaboration and the way of working together is fundamental. And our commitment and commitments made by the international community back during the World Humanitarian Summit in 2015 were recognizing the importance of local humanitarian actors and made commitments as a community to increase the work and the resourcing to ensure effective and impactful action on the ground and sustainable rehabilitation.
Do you have an example of a successful partnership you have between yourselves and a local organization?
We have many, both around the world. We've been working with partners in the Philippines and Afghanistan and here in the United States and Puerto Rico to assure that our responses are working together collaboratively and impactful, but also where we can bring the voice to influence change and recovery here in the United States.
And I know that this is kind of the million-dollar question, but is there a secret to success of a good partnership?
Well, I'd say that the ingredients, Rebecca, are twofold. One, mutual respect, and ensuring mutual learning and seeing the partnership as two ways, as a multi-directional partnership, not international, benevolent to local, but the local to global, and the interdependent relationship between the two really is how we can make meaningful impact and sustainable change.
And do you think there's a way that international organizations like Oxfam, the local organizations that you have the partnerships with, can they work together, do you think, to have some kind of influence with the local government so that should a humanitarian crisis hit, they are able to issue that first response and really affect change?
Absolutely. I think also working on the ground with local government, reformists, people within government, in the lead up to humanitarian response is actually essential. It's how you can really influence productive change and preparedness. And that kind of work, the long-term relationship pre, during, and post-crisis is really essential, and where we've seen over decades where the real change and impact happens.
And are there 2 or 3 key lessons you've learned from your work and working with local organizations, local governments that you can share with our audience?
Well, there's a few things. One, the importance, if we look at humanitarian response and peace building, assuring that women's voices are heard and looking to a future where we have women leaders as well in leadership positions at local level, at international level. When you look at the effectiveness and sustainability of post-crisis and post-conflict, women's voices and women's leadership is an ingredient to success. And also the long-term collaboration in ensuring we are bringing resources to local actors. We made commitments as an international community as part of the Grand Bargain and the Charter for Change to meet targets of bringing 25% of resources to local partners and governments. And across the board, globally, as of 2016, we had reached, the data shows that it's 2%. As Oxfam, we have committed to 30%. We wanted to exceed those targets. We've only reached 24%, and we know that we have an obligation to increase our efforts as well.
And so you mentioned there having increasingly more female voices in leadership roles. Are there some challenges you face in making that happen, or have you got solutions to overcome those to ensure that there is a well-balanced gender leadership?
Well, it is fundamentally important. I think I've led humanitarian response in different countries, in Haiti and Ethiopia, for example, and I was often the only woman leader at the table. I think we're seeing some change, but there has to be a sector-wide commitment and how we look to nurture and mentor and work at all levels to bring women's voice and leadership into positions of power and influence.
And would you have advice for other international development organizations on how to successfully do that?
Well, I think it really is key to make the commitment, because it takes effort to support and empower local actors, and you have to give up power too. So the relationship between local and international actors, as well as supporting women's leadership, requires real commitment, ensuring you look at your policies, procedures, practices, and culture. And what are the barriers going on and the biases you bring in your organization that prevent women from stepping into leadership roles and from working in an equal and mutually respectful partnership and bringing resources to local partners.
And you're already seeing some of that happen and take place and change the landscape, the different contexts that Oxfam works in, and certainly in humanitarian crisis. When you're going on the ground there now, are you seeing things kind of change and shift a little bit towards that direction?
I do. When I visited South Sudan last fall, when I was in Puerto Rico seeing our response there, I saw empowered women and people and partners working collaboratively together as equal partners. But the data isn't adding up yet in terms of looking across the board, sector-wide, where are the resources flowing? Look at the numbers. And so it really is going to take a real commitment to honor commitments already made in the international community. Donors, multilaterals, NGOs, all working together to ensure that resourcing and commitment to making real measurable change happen.
Mm-hmm. And so thinking about what we've been talking about, local leadership, women in leadership, thinking about the future 10 years from now, do you think that the leadership landscape when responding to humanitarian crisis is going to look vastly different to how it does today, or much the same? Are you optimistic?
I am counting on it. I really see not just the opportunity, but the urgency. And there's been a sea change in the world, and I think that we have an obligation to act, to make commitments, to meet the targets, the 25% targets globally. It's something within our gift to do. We can do it. It's about commitment and political will. And as Oxfam, we will continue our efforts to exceed the targets that we've set for ourselves, and we look to working collaboratively with others to do the same.
Great. And with that in mind, Oxfam America, what's the next frontier? What do the next 10 years look like specifically for you and your organization?
Well, we have a lot of exciting there's a lot to be done in the world. We know that we're facing the largest global refugee crisis since World War II, certainly looking at issues here domestically and internationally on our humanitarian response front, looking at issues about refugees, displacement, migration, assuring progressive policies that are welcoming and supportive both to end conflicts and the underlying things that are driving people to move, and to be welcoming and have policies that are supporting and embracing refugees, such as in Uganda, who is welcoming the largest number of refugees in the world right now. We think that in the United States and around the world, we have the opportunity to both prevent the conflicts and bring an end to some of the world's most hideous conflicts going on, but also ensure that people have safe haven and safe passage.
And so today we're here at Devex World, where we have many people from the international development community, from Fortune 500 companies, all different kinds of actors here. Do you have a specific call to action for them to make this happen?
Well, I think that for real change to happen and positive change to happen, it is the dynamic and interdependent relationship between private sector, government, and civil society. We see there's risks of closing civil society space in some places. We see the opportunity and the influence that all actors working together have to make positive change, to be able to invest right and invest well and empower local communities to take action. And I would call on those here and beyond to use their voice and use the muscle, both the financial and other, that we have to honor commitments already made and see them through.
Great. Listen, Abby, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for tuning in.